song Apatu by Bruno Mars and Rosé first came out, I have this friend who likes the song a lot, and she played it once while we were hanging out. And that was the first time I was hearing the song, and I did not just like the song. It sounded a bit funny to me, and I told her I did not like the song, and then she put the song off. But then the next day, while I was in the shower, I suddenly caught myself singing the hook of the song, Apatu, or something like that. That was how it went. And that particular hook kept ringing in my head. I couldn't just get it out of my head. And this bothered me a lot because I was feeling sort of embarrassed because why was this song stuck in my head? And worst of all, a song that I felt that I did not like. And so I just decided to do a little research and look into this. Today's episode, we'll be talking about why songs get stuck in your head. And we'll discuss the science of what is known as earworms. This is a short special episode, so there will be no serious deep dive. It'll just be a fun investigation into something that happens to 90% of people. Let us get into it. I am Angelo, and this is the Clarity Podcast. Now, here's the first thing, and frankly for me, the most important thing to know about earworms. Earworms do not discriminate between the songs you like and the songs you do not like. Your brain does not care whether you enjoy the song, and it does not care whether you choose to listen to it. What matters to your brain is whether the pattern of the song has been encoded. And this encoding can happen in your brain whether you like it or not. Now, there is a professor at the University of Cincinnati, James Kellaris, who has studied earworms extensively. And he found in his studies that annoying songs were among the most commonly reported earworms. Not necessarily the best songs, and not even the songs that you are emotionally attached to. The songs that get stuck in your head are those songs that you find funny, funky, or annoying. And the reason connects directly to how the entire mechanism of earworms work. Now, this brings us to the actual science. The scientific term for what happened to me when the song Apatu got stuck in my head for days on end is known as involuntary musical imagery. Researchers often shorten it to IMIR. And this describes what happens when a piece of music plays repeatedly in your mind without any deliberate attempt to recall it. So I was not choosing to remember that song. It was just there in my mind. Now, I said earlier in the episode that 90% of people experience earworms. But in reality, the fact is that approximately 98% of people experience earworms regularly. So 98%, that is almost everybody. And this tells you that this is not necessarily a sign of anything unusual about your brain. It is one of the most universal human experiences that exist. And almost nobody talks about it seriously because it feels too trivial to examine. And yet it happens to nearly all of us throughout our lives. Now, musicians experience earworms more frequently than non-musicians, and for longer durations also. This is because they have a more developed auditory processing systems that encode music patterns even more deeply. So, if you are a musician and you cannot get a song out of your head, your career is partly responsible. So why does this happen? Why does the brain get stuck on a musical fragment and keeps playing it, keeps returning back to it? Kellaris proposed an explanation that he called the cognitive itch hypothesis. And this analogy, at the center of it, is the one that made me understand everything about earworms. So, think about a physical itch on your body. When you have an itch, it creates an urge and you want to scratch it. Scratching provides immediate temporary relief, but scratching also stimulates the nerve endings further, and this produces more itch, which you then scratch again, and then it produces more itch. So you are in a cycle and the cycle feeds itself. The more you respond to the itch, the more itch there is to respond to. Now, a cognitive itch works in a similar way. So when you get a melodic fragment stuck in your auditory cortex, which is the part of the brain that processes sound, your brain tries to resolve it. And to complete this, you have to finish the musical thought. But if the fragment is incomplete, or if the resolution of that itch is just out of reach, the brain keeps returning to it and trying over and over again. Each attempt at resolution restimulates the neural patterns and the loop continues. And this is why usually partial fragments like the chorus of a song or the hook of a song are way more powerful earworms than complete songs. When you hear a full song from beginning to the end, it resolves. The musical narrative is complete and the brain is satisfied. But a fragment that cuts off mid-phrase leaves a musical question unanswered, and the brain, which cannot tolerate an unresolved pattern, keeps going back to it to try to answer it. I listened to that Apatu song just once, and I did not even listen to the complete song. I just listened enough for the hook of the song to be encoded in my brain and for the itch to begin. And my brain kept trying to finish that song after that day for days on end. Now, even though earworms do not discriminate, annoying songs specifically tend to stick so hard. Now, why does this happen? The cognitive itch theory answers this directly. An annoying song creates a more uncomfortable itch, which produces a stronger urge to resolve or suppress it. Now, which means that the brain activates the neural pattern more frequently while trying to deal with it. And this makes the loop worse. And then there is something called the white bear effect, which is a very interesting concept in psychology. The psychologist Daniel Wedner gave people a simple instruction. He said, do not think about a white bear. Whatever you do, do not let a white bear into your thoughts. Now, they could not think about anything else apart from that white bear. So, the moment you instruct your brain to suppress a thought, you have to first generate the thought to know that you are suppressing. Now, this monitoring process keeps the very thing you want to avoid active in your working memory. The harder you try not to think about something, the more cognitive attention you dedicate to checking whether you are thinking about it or not. And that checking is itself the thinking. So when you apply this to earworms, the more you try to push a song stuck in your head out of your head, the more your brain monitors for it. And the more your brain monitors for it, the more it keeps activating the pattern of the song. The resistance to this is the fuel. So when you are lying in bed at night, desperately trying not to sing that song you hate and actively telling your brain to stop, you are making it worse. Now, to bring this home specifically, because there is something about the Afrobeats genre that makes this whole phenomenon more interesting. Research has found that the structural features most associated with sticky, memorable, and earworm producing music are short melodic phrases, high repetition, rhythmic emphasis, and simple but satisfying resolution patterns. So the fewer notes in the repeated unit and the more times the unit repeats, the more deeply the song is able to encode. Now, you describe an Afrobeat song and you say it has short phrases which are repeated frequently, melodically simple but rhythmically compelling, and there is often a call and response structure that the brain anticipates and finds satisfying each time it resolves. And each time it does not resolve because the song is still going, the brain anticipates it again and again. So, the architecture of Afrobeats is, whether by design or by intuition, structurally optimized for earworm production. It is not an accident that a Charlie Poppy hook can follow you around for days. And the same features that make Afrobeat so infectious and pleasurable are the same features that turn it into an earworm that outlasts the party by days. So, enough of the mechanisms. Let us talk solutions. Research by Ira Hyman at the Western Washington University has found that the most effective way to displace an earworm is a moderately demanding cognitive task. So you do something not too easy and not too hard. Something like a crossword puzzle or a mildly mentally engaging game. Just something that occupies enough mental bandwidth to crowd out the automatic musical loop, but something that is also not so demanding that it becomes stressful. So, a second approach to getting rid of earworms is to let the song complete. So, if an earworm is being driven by the cognitive itch of an unresolved fragment, deliberately listening to the full song from beginning to end can sometimes satisfy the brain's need to resolve that pattern. The musical narrative reaches its conclusion and then the itch is scratched properly. Although sometimes this does not work, and occasionally the full song then becomes the earworm from the very beginning to the end. And this is a risk you should be aware of before you try resolving your earworm with this method. Then there is a third method which is known as the earworm substitution. Now this is when you deliberately replace the stock song with a different and less sticky piece of music. Research suggests that the substitution song works best if it has a very clear and definitive ending that signals finality to the brain. And finally, the most important advice, which is the hardest to follow, is do not try to suppress the earworm directly because of the wise bear effect. The harder you push, the harder it pushes back. So what you do is you acknowledge it, you notice it, and you let it run briefly without fighting it. And then you gently redirect your attention to something else. This is exactly the kind of advice that sounds simple, but it is genuinely difficult to execute. But it works. And so finally, why do songs get stuck in your head? The simple answer is that your brain hears an unresolved musical fragment and keeps trying to finish it. For me, the Bruno Mars and Rosé song is still there in my head from time to time, but these days I have made peace with it. We have an arrangement now. I listen to it sometimes and I even sing it. This is the clarity. On the final note, if this episode has given you an earworm, and statistically speaking, there is a very high chance it has, because when you think and talk about music, it activates the same auditory processing systems as when you hear it. So I am sorry if it has given you an earworm. You now at least know why. And knowing why is the whole point of this episode. This has been the Clarity Podcast. I am Angelo. Please share this episode with your friends and follow us on our X. The handle is in the description of the episode. I'll see you next week with a new episode. And until then, think clearly.